sort of asking the question, what did Satoshi Nakamoto actually invent? Maybe you could say, who is Satoshi Nakamoto and what did he invent?
Sure. So Satoshi Nakamoto is the name by which we know the person who originally came up with Bitcoin. So the reason why I say the name by which we know is that this is a anonymous fellow who has shown himself to us only over the internet, just by first publishing the white paper for Bitcoin, then releasing the original source code for Bitcoin, and then talking to the very early Bitcoin community on Bitcoin forums, and of interacting with them and helping the project along for a couple of years. And then at some point in late 2010 to early 2011, he disappeared. So Bitcoin is a fairly unique project in how it has this kind of mythical, kind of quasi-godlike founder who just kind of popped in, did the thing, and kind of disappeared, and we've somehow just never heard from him again.
So in 2008 the white paper was the first. Do you know if the
Yes.
white paper was the first time the name will actually appear, Satoshi
I
Nakamoto?
believe so.
So how is it possible that the creator of such a impactful project remains anonymous?
That's a tough question, and
There's no similarity to it in history of technology as far as I'm aware.
yeah. So one possibility is that it's Hal Finney, because Hal Finney was kind of also active in the Bitcoin community, and as Hal Finney in those beginning years, and Hal.
Who
of
is Hal
course,
Finney, maybe you could say?
He's one of the people in the end of early cypherpunk community. He was
So he's a computer scientist, just
yeah,
one of the
computer scientists, cryptographers, people interested in like the interesting thing about the 21st century especially is that a lot of the important valuable things are not backed by anything. Like if you look at like tech companies, for example, like something like Twitter,
Yes.
right? Like you could theoretically imagine that if all of the employees wanted to, they could kind of come together, they would quit and start working on Twitter 2.0, and then the value of and just kind of build the exact same product, or possibly build a better product, and then just kind of continue on from there. And the original Twitter would kind of just not have people left anymore, right? Like
Right.
there is theoretically kind of code and like IP that's owned by the company, but in reality, like good programmers could probably rewrite all that stuff in 3 months. So the reason why the thing has value is just kind of network effects and coordination problems, right? Like these employees in reality aren't going to switch all at once, and also the users aren't all going to switch at once because it's just difficult for them to switch at once. And so there's these kind of metastable and of equilibria in interactions between thousands and millions of people that are just actually quite sticky, even though if you try to kind of assume that everyone's a perfectly rational and kind of perfectly slippery spherical cow, they don't seem to exist at all. Yeah, not saying it's kind of a healthy thing that people define their self-worth as money, because it's definitely kind of far from a perfect indicator of like how much you value you provide to society or anything like this. But I definitely think that like as a matter of kind of current practice, a bunch of people do feel that way. So I definitely think that kind of existing economic philosophies do end up kind of systematically kind of deviating from the utopia in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like one of the big things I talk about, for example, is public goods, right? And public goods are like, especially important on the internet, right? Because like the idea is with kind of money as this game where I lose a few coins and you gain the same number of coins. Is that this usually happens in a trade where I lose some money, you gain some money, you lose a sandwich, and I gain a sandwich, and this kind of model works really well when the thing that we're using money to incentivize is kind of private goods, right? Things that you provide to one person where the benefit comes to one person. But the like on the internet especially, but also many, many contexts kind of off the internet, there's actions that kind of individuals or groups can take where instead of the benefit going to one person, the benefit just goes to many people at the same time, and you can't control who the benefit goes to, right? So, for example, this podcast, we publish it, and when it's published, you don't have any fine-grained control over like, oh, these 38,000 people can watch it, and then like these other 29,000 people can't.
Yeah.
It's like once the number goes high enough, then people will just like copy it, and then when I write articles on a blog, then they're just like free for everyone, and that stuff's even harder to prevent anyone from copying. So, and aside from that, things like scientific research, for example, and even taking more pedestrian examples like climate change mitigation would be a big one. So there's a lot of things in the world where you have these kind of individual actions with concentrated costs and distributed benefits, and money as a point system does not do a good job of encouraging these things. And one of the kind of other things, even kind of tangentially connected to crypto, but kind of theoretically outside of it that I work on, is this sort of mechanism called quadratic funding. And the way to think about it is kind of imagine a point system where if one person gives coins to one other person, then it works the same way as money. But if multiple people give coins to one person, and they do so anonymously, so it's kind of not in consideration for a specific service to that person themselves, then the number of coins received by that person is kind of greater than just the sum of the number of coins that have given by those different people. So the actual formula is you take the square root of the amount that each person gave, then you add all the square roots, and then you kind of square the sum. Yeah, and then you give that. And the idea here would basically be that if, let's say, for example, you just start going off and kind of planting a lot of trees, and there's a bunch of people that are really happy that you're planting trees, and then so they go and all kind of throw a coin your way, then there is basically the fact that kind of you get more than the sum, you get this kind of square of some of these of square roots of these tiny amounts, is that this actually kind of compensates for the tragedy of the commons, right? And there's even this kind of mathematical proof that it sort of optimally compensates for it.
What is the tragedy of the commons?
This is just this idea that if there is this situation where there's some public good that lots of people benefit from, then no individual person wants to contribute to it, because if they contribute, they only get a small part of the benefit from their contribution, but they pay the full cost of their contribution.